Hello, everyone. Hello, my friend. Welcome
Hello.
to the next episode of the Community Open Hours. How's your life, my friend? How are you doing, Frank?
Good, perfect. And as always, if people can say hi from the chat where they are watching and ask question if they have.
Yeah, I've been waiting for you to say that. Everyone who is watching us live today, thanks for coming. I do believe that you will not regret joining this session because today Frank is the key presenter. He is going to do some live coding / setup of the observability solution. Well, let me pronounce it properly. Yeah, that's also the place. As a reminder for those of you who are joining us for the first time, Frank and I, we always have something to show you, to demo, but also take this live stream as an opportunity to ask us any questions that are not related to the main topic. So that's why say hi and tell us what brought you to this session. Probably something that doesn't align with the main topic, but the main topic is on our radar today. Okay, so usually we start with a few updates. And do you have any updates, my friend, first? Anything from your end?
My first update is that I will be at PGConf India next week in Bangalore. So if people are in the conference, then please say hello. I'm running a workshop, 3 hours, setting up Yugabyte and playing with Yugabyte on Docker, and also a session explaining the difference between Yugabyte and Postgres. So yeah, hope to see a lot of people there.
For how long will you stay in India?
Just for the conference, so I will arrive on Wednesday and go back on Saturday. The funny thing with Bangalore is that all the flights seems to be around midnight, so I have at 1 a.m. and I leave at 1 a.m.
Yeah, red eye flight. But at least you're still, yes, you're a young man, right? You're in good condition. I know, like a good friend of mine, he's in his probably late 50s or early 60s, and he's my ex-colleague from a previous company. He always used to say that, Denis, I used to take those red-eye flight when I was younger, but these days, no. Usually when I travel, I just stay in some resort and then discuss different deals, opportunities, and then I just fly back, let's say, in the midday. So, but yeah, there is always, some fun but also.
And it depends on the airports. I think in India they synchronize all the flights and like that. So.
Exactly. So good luck to you. I mean, those of you folks who are live in Bangalore or near the city, take this opportunity because we discussed it previous time, but Frank has this wonderful workshop on YugabyteDB on distributed SQL that will give you an opportunity just to not just to watch and see what Frank does, but also just to make your hands dirty. And then Frank will be nearby. He will be helping you to understand if you stumble upon anything. And also Frank does another topic. He has a conference session. So come over if you're not that far from the conference location. So we've got a comment from someone. Yeah, Pete. Hello, Pete. Thanks.
Hey.
Thanks for joining us. Hopefully, yeah. Pete is not from Bangalore. I know for sure.
No, but Pete, I hope that Pete will enjoy this session because he's asking for observability from SQL, and we will do it differently.
Okay, then let's not delay this moment because I have another couple of updates for everyone. So what happened since the time we met last time? We met, as folks, you remember, we meet every 2 weeks. And right now, I need to share the screen with you. So the first update is that literally a week ago, we released a new version of YugabyteDB Voyager. So what the Voyager is, it's our data migration tool. So if you have data sitting in Oracle, Postgres, MySQL, and you want to migrate to YugabyteDB, probably you found the reason. That's the tool that we support. It's open source tool, and we invest a lot of our time and engineering resources in making it better. So what happened last week? We released version 1.6.5, and in this version, we eventually supported this long anticipated capability. So right now we support live migration from PostgreSQL. So if you have Postgres, open source, RDS, etc., you can migrate to YugabyteDB using the live migration approach. If just to give you a quick idea, so how does that live migration look like? You have your user application, that's your original source database. It can be PostgreSQL. First, you take a snapshot from this database, you apply it to YugabyteDB using Voyager. So Voyager automates all that stuff. And then you start capturing and updating, applying incremental changes from your source database. Once you are done, you do this cutover, you're switching your application to YugabyteDB, you wait while the latest changes are applied, and then you are running on a distributed cluster. PostgreSQL was not the first database that Voyager supported the live migration for. Originally, we supported this live migration capability for Oracle because there was a good demand. And right now, it's naturally that we eventually supported it for PostgreSQL. So that's what happened. Frank, any thoughts, any comments on this? Because I want to share the link with everyone.
Yeah, just two things. The idea is like a lot of live migration tools. First, initialization, getting all data, and then catching up with logical replication and change data capture. And the second thing is that Voyager, we really try to put everything in Voyager that helps for migration. So of course, live migration helps to reduce the downtime when you migrate. But the idea of Voyager is also that it checks the schema. It tries to put warning if there is anything that should be changed when moving from Postgres to Yugabyte, and we will add more on that. The idea is really that it's the tool that will help you to migrate without too much effort. Of course, the effort depends on the application, but without too much effort.
Yeah, as a developer, and I think that applies to everyone who is transitioning from one technology to another. Sometimes you can become very excited saying that, oh yeah, like this tool, this database or whatever works for me. But then you're coming to that painful moment when you need to move your system from technology A to technology B. And that's why, I mean, like I always like tools like Voyager that makes that stuff process simpler, because we don't want to waste a lot of weeks and hours trying to figure out what's the best way to migrate from A to B.
Yeah, and it's not easy going from a monolithic database to a distributed database. Maybe some default settings are not the best for legacy Postgres applications. So the idea of Voyager, it can check all that. It can parallelize depending on the size of the target cluster. So yeah, a lot of automation there. That also means that if people use it and have feedback, this is how we improve it. The goal is that Voyager is the tool that helps users in their case. So the more they test it with Postgres application migrating to Yugabyte and giving feedback about what can be improved, this will help.
All right. Yeah, I think that sometime in the future we should repeat our session on Voyager, because back in the days, I remember we had that live stream here discussing and playing with Voyager, but those days we did not have any live migration at all, not even for Oracle. So let's, folks, if you're interested in that, just drop us a note, and Frank and I, we will come up with some nice use case, some nice scenario.
Just one more word. Live migration, I said it's to reduce the downtime, but it's also to reduce the stress, because if you replicate, then you have all your time to check when everything is good and do the switch to the new one. If you have to stop the application for a weekend, then you have the stress that you have to finish it and validate everything before the Monday. So yeah, it reduces the stress a lot.
It's all about stress, right? Yeah, the stress. We need to reduce it. Good. So what's next? And the second, not the second, the third piece of news. The first one, folks, to remember, Frank is coming to Bangalore conference session, PGConf. The second one was this new release of YugabyteDB Voyager. Right now, the tool supports live migration from Postgres. And the third one is the Super Bowl. And we have Pete, for instance. Pete lives in Amsterdam. It's in Europe. And probably many folks who live in Europe, they just don't care about Super Bowl. But if you live in if you live in the United States, then that's actually the game, the biggest game that almost a half of the country watches. Like even if you don't follow, even if you don't follow like the American football, I don't follow American football. I watch only one game a year, and that game is the Super Bowl. So I watched it. I watch it every year, like only the Super Bowl, because it's a wonderful performance overall. And what happened this time? What was different this time? Because this time the Super Bowl was running on YugabyteDB. So the Paramount, it's the live streaming event. So generally, Paramount Plus, it's a streaming platform where you can watch your movies, favorite movie series, and different sports events. And Paramount Plus officially transitioned to YugabyteDB in early 2023, and they spoke about this publicly. We discussed it, I think, also in one of our previous episodes. But right now, after the Super Bowl is over, so we can talk about details of this, their multi-region application to the extent that we are allowed to talk. That's why next week on Thursday, February 29th, we are going to do a technical, it says webinar, but it's going to be a technical session. I will be one of the hosts, and I prepared a few demos for you. Likewise here, when we show something with Franck, we try to show you how things work in practice, the latencies, failures, etc. And this webinar will not be an exception. So if you want to learn how to build multi-region applications running on YugabyteDB that scale and never fail, hopefully, then join this webinar. I will share the link with you folks in the comments. And Pete, yeah, what Pete says. I'm an optimist. The bowl is half full. Yeah. It's full. All right. So while I'm sharing this link, Franck, please let's answer this question from Suraj. Voyager support for migration from SMS to YugabyteDB. So do you know what does SSMS stand for?
So let me quickly Google SSMS.
Okay, let's see.
I suppose it's a migration service, but I don't know. Or is it SQL Server? I don't know exactly. For the moment, we support migrations from Postgres, Oracle, and MySQL, I think.
Yeah,
so
let me show you.
Not SQL Server if the SS is for SQL Server.
Yeah, that's the link I'm showing on my screen. Yeah, so right now officially it's Postgres, Oracle, MySQL, and a few other flavors of Postgres like Aurora, RDS, Google Cloud SQL, Azure SQL. That's Azure SQL for Postgres. That's what we have right now. If we did not answer your question correctly, then just clarify, please. What does there?
Yeah, maybe I didn't get SSMS. For me, it can be SQL Server Management Studio or maybe something migration service. I don't know. So yeah.
Okay. Having said that, let's get to the main topic. Observability solution for YugabyteDB using Prometheus and Grafana. So how do you want to start? Let's start with the intro. What's the purpose? Why would you want to
Let me share my screen and show you what we will do. So I just tested it before. So my goal is to have some kind of observability with graphs about the performance, about the statistics. I care about the performance of my database and even something about execution plan. But the goal is to build everything from scratch. So this I run that from a Docker compose, and I will just go to the directory, do a compose down, and remove the directory so that we can start from scratch. The idea also is to do something that can be reproduced.
So you're running an open source, just to clarify, you're running an open source version of YugabyteDB, just you're starting in Docker.
Yeah, I will restart everything. I removed everything. Let me just go elsewhere, and we will start it from scratch with a new Docker file. Let me just close this tab because I'm tunneling some ports and it tries to connect, but everything is shut down. Okay. So I will go through, and if there is any questions, interrupt me. This starts with a Docker Compose, which is a way to run easily more than one container, where we declare services, basically from an image, the Yugabyte image, open source, free to use. And YugabyteDB start with a few parameters. We will see that just because I will do something a bit experimental for which I need some parameters. A volume for config files. Health check for the moment. The health check is using PG is ready to check that we can connect. I'm tunneling some ports, the old UI, the new UI, and the connection, and I restart if it fails, just for high availability.
Oh,
So
nice.
that's
You actually, yeah, sorry for interrupting. You're actually using Docker Compose to start a cluster node with YugabyteDB tool.
yes.
I've never tried doing that because in the past, when the tool, when YugabyteDB was in the preview mode, whenever I use the Docker Compose approach, I would use YugabyteDB master and T-server directly.
No, you
But
can do it with YugabyteDB. Here I start a one node cluster only. If you start two nodes, you have either to put a script around it if you just want to scale the replicas, or multiple services, because there are different parameters when you start new nodes to attach to the server. But basically, I'm running a single node there, and I've tunneled the port so I can show what we have on port 7,000. So I had a 1 because I tunnel in my SSH. I can see that it is started on port 9,000. I have more information about the tablet server. On port 15433, we have the nice UI. For the
yeah, that's our
moment,
default
that's
UI. This is
most
our
of it.
default
Yeah.
UI, and yeah, one of my follow-up questions would be for you is like, yeah, why did you decide to come up with this observability solution with Prometheus and Grafana? If you already have this UI, what's
exactly
missing?
I have the UI, but of course, when you provide an UI, it's always a balance, giving enough information that is useful but not too much. We cannot expose 200 metrics in the UI, so we just expose the basic ones. And but for more tuning, you can do more. Basically, if people use the cloud Yugabyte managed, they have more on the UI, but they can also plug Grafana. But on open source, in the UI, we have just a few metrics that gives an idea about the workload. But basically, there are more metrics exposed if I go to a tablet server there. And if I go to utilities metrics, you can see that there is a lot of metrics there. And I will not stay too long on this page because my browser will just hang. And those are in the Prometheus format. And this is what I will use to scrape those metrics, store them in Prometheus, and display them with Grafana.
So just let's stop here for a second. So what you've just shown, you connected to port number 19,000, and this port is open on the YugabyteDB cluster node end. And right now you show me these metrics in the Prometheus format, which means that the node, the cluster, it collects a lot of information and it packages that information metrics in the Prometheus format that you can consume. Any other tool can consume it.
Yeah, in this format where there is a name for the metric and some labels, like from which server it is coming. Maybe there is more information about which table, depending on the metric. And then there is a value. But of course, we want to see that in a nicer way than looking at that. And this is why I will first add to my Docker Compose a Prometheus service. Also because Prometheus can store it, what I displayed there. Those are statistics cumulative from the beginning of the instance. So of course, if you run after a few days, makes no sense to look at cumulative statistics because there are days with a lot of activity and days with less activity. So let me first, before adding that to the Docker Compose, I will write a config file for Prometheus. Basically, it's a pool system where Prometheus will read from this endpoint. So we just need a YAML file that describes that every 5 seconds it will scrape, read those metrics. And I just give the target. I have only one node here, that is YugabyteDB, and 2 ports, one for the master, one for the tablet server, because I don't know yet which metrics I will want to look at. So this is a simple configuration file, and I will add to my Docker Compose a Prometheus service that will use this configuration file. So declaring the service at the end of the Docker Compose, the image is Prometheus from Prometheus, volume to get this config file, the command line that references this config file. I'm running everything as root, which is not a good idea, but for my lab, that's fine. And Prometheus, the default port is 1990. So I export also this one. And I just say that it depends on YugabyteDB because it makes no sense to scrape metrics if the source is not up. So that's what I've added to the Docker Compose.
Okay, it looks straightforward. It's simple. And then this is basically, this configuration is what Prometheus is expecting from you. I mean, like you're following there. You're giving the config file. It's good.
So Docker Compose up, Yugabyte is already running, and Prometheus is started, which means that now on port 9090, so with a 1 because of my SSH tunneling, I should be able to access to Prometheus. Here is Prometheus, so there is a small UI and it stores data.
Yeah, like we've got before you go deep into that Prometheus, its configuration, I mean, it's excellent that we see this Prometheus endpoint running. You've got a feedback from Keval. Important metrics like follower lag is not available in metrics section, so such critical metrics we can integrate with Grafana. I think that Keval is referring to the YugabyteDB UI, default one that doesn't show everything. But yeah, that actually was one of the points and ideas behind this live stream, so that even if we don't support everything, I think that we support we support much more for YugabyteDB managed, but technologically the approach is the same, right? We are consuming from the Prometheus endpoints and you can add whatever you want. And this is what we are showing today.
Follower lag, that's something you may want to look at, but not the basic user, because the followers are the leader replicates to the follower to the quorum in sync. So even if one follower is lagging, you should not have a problem. But of course, from the infrastructure point of view, you may want to have an alert, because if there is a lag on a follower, then probably something is happening.
And so I'm curious. I'm curious. Let me ask a question to Keval. Keval, like, why this metric is so important for you? Like, for me, my gut feeling is that you're using follower reads, but there might be something else. And guys, so the follower reads is the ability. Let's say you deploy in that multi-region configuration, and this is exactly what we are going to discuss and demonstrate during that a Super Bowl related webinar next week. You can deploy your cluster across several regions, distant locations. And then like one of the regions is preferred, meaning that reads and writes in that region will be fast. But when you read data from other distant locations, right, you need to go to the preferred region and the latency will be high for reads. And you can optimize this latency by reading data directly from the followers that are close to your user location. And this is my kind of guess that Kiwal uses the follower reads, and that's why he needs that metric. But
Good
Kiwal,
point,
please
because
let us
if the
know.
follower lags more than the stainless that you allow, then it will read from the leader, and then you will have more latency. Yeah.
Yeah, but let's get back to you. Yeah, sorry for disrupting your flow.
No problem. Just from Prometheus, we can see that the targets are up, so it is scraping metrics from those 2 points, and then I can look at them. Follower lag millisecond is there.
Oh, we have it. Excellent. Let's show actually. Yeah, let's show to Kiwal how
Then
to
we
edit.
will do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, I have 3 metrics called follower lag. 1 from the master here, 2 from the tablet server, and I don't know exactly why 2. Oh yeah, because we have this per table. And for the moment, I didn't create any table. So I have 2 internal tables, the transaction table and the metrics, where those metrics are actually stored. So yeah, that's very good, but not really easy to read from Prometheus. We may want to see a graph. Prometheus can do that, but it's not really nice. If I look at another metric like, or maybe I will run some activity, because of course, if I have no table, it will be difficult to see. So to run more activity, I will run pgbench, and again, I will add some services for it in my Docker Compose. First, a pgbench init that will run only once. So it will just run pgbench initialization, and then a pgbench run service. So I run it from the Postgres image because we are Postgres compatible. Then I use Postgres as a client. We have also a YSQL bench that is the fork of pgbench, but I use the Postgres one. And this one I restart it, so it runs 60 seconds and then it restarts. So the same as in the old times, I would just have done a loop in Bash, and today I'm just using services in Docker Compose.
Yeah, you want to be fancy, right?
The declarative approach, and what is nice with the declarative approach is that I just do Docker Compose up. What didn't change, what is running still continues to run, and the new things are started.
Yeah, jokes aside, yeah, I love Docker Compose exactly for this.
Yeah.
It's like you're defining your whole deployment and you're describing it, your application, your database, your other services, right? And then you just start and stop, and it can clean itself. It can start, restart whatever was changed. So this
and of course, you can check the logs to see what happened. So the pgbench init has created the table. And then if I look at the logs for pgbench, you can see that it starts every 60 seconds. And with the -p, I display the progress every 5 seconds. So you can see that it is running 152 transactions per second.
okay.
I can look back at my statistics. I don't expect a lot for follower lag because here I have a single node replication 1, so nothing is replicated.
Oh yeah, you need to start. Yeah, you need to.
But if I look at the rocks DB number 6, so that's an interesting one when you look at the performance of SQL queries, because we store tables and indexes in LSM trees, and then one of the most expensive operation for OLTP is the lookup to find the key, and that's a SIG in RocksDB. So Basically,
And what I like, yeah, and what I like is actually how you search for those different metrics. You don't need to remember. Prometheus already sorts, right? And
yes.
it creates this drop down list of different metrics. It's excellent.
Actually, this is, and maybe I don't know if there is something easier, but we will see in Grafana. This is PromQL, Prometheus query language, where I can add more things, but I just don't know the syntax, so I will do that in Grafana. But for example, you can see that those are cumulative metrics, always increasing. I really want to do the delta between two snapshots. We will do that in Grafana. Also, this is not really nice. I mean, if you want to display that in a big monitor in the open space, this is not really nice. We will see that Grafana can do better.
And quick explanation for those who have joined us a few minutes ago, because I see that new people are joining.
Yeah.
What Frank has showed you, we have a standalone cluster, one node cluster instance running on Frank's machine, and that machine exposes metrics through a special Prometheus endpoint. So like every YugabyteDB node has that endpoint. So Frank eventually connected to that endpoint using this Prometheus service, and this is what Prometheus shows. Prometheus can understand and recognize all the metrics posted by YugabyteDB, and this is what Frank is looking at.
Prometheus can also add some alerts, but yeah, we will just look at that for the moment. So let's add Grafana that will use the metrics collected by Prometheus, but display them in a different way in dashboards. And so for that, just adding a new service to my Docker Compose, Grafana, with the image from Grafana. I have two volumes there, one for configuration file and one where what I will save in Grafana will be stored, because the dashboard, you have some work to do a nice dashboard. So you want to store that somewhere. You can also store that in a Postgres or YugabyteDB database. I think the default is a SQLite, but I'm not completely sure. And Grafana, the default port is 3000. Sorry. So starting this one. And now I should be able to connect to Grafana on port 3000.
Oh,
so Grafana,
nice.
as for login, yeah, the color, I think the designers of Grafana did a really good job.
It's like what we discussed with you when we were preparing for this session, when we discussed the idea. We came up with this point, is that even if your whole session is a complete meltdown and it's just a disaster, it's terrible, at least if you show Grafana, it's already a good big plus, because Grafana looks so nice. Just put there a few metrics, make your at least presentation technical talk look beautiful.
Yeah, and it's important. Of course, the quality of the metrics is important, and the analysis of the metric is the most important. But if you are doing some monitoring and you are working with boring things, then yeah, you don't have the same enthusiasm. So in Grafana, just connect admin. It asks to change the password. I don't do that in a lab, of course. Even if it only displays data, always good to have security. And that's the default. It's just a welcome page. For the moment, it has nothing. It is even not connected to Prometheus, but we will do that. In connections, I will add a data source. So Grafana can build dashboards from many sources. Some are open source, some are not. But okay, for Prometheus, I just mentioned the address. So the service I started is Prometheus. All this is running in the same Docker Compose, so in the same network. And let's just save and test. The UI is really nice. I really like that I have only one button, save and test. Makes no sense to save it if it doesn't work.
And this is actually
and you
proof,
always
because
want
right
to
now,
test. Yeah.
Because right now I'm looking at the metrics on Twitter, X, and Instagram. People joined before you started showing Grafana, and people don't go. They just
Uh,
nobody cares about your technical metrics. Like people just want to look at Grafana. And
yeah.
by the way, Keval shared some update on his thoughts about the follower lag. Keval, we will get back to your question in a few minutes once Frank finishes the demonstrations. I saw your question, so we'll get back to it a little bit later.
So I've saved it. While I'm there, I will add another source just because I can. I've seen that there is a Postgres source, and we have a Postgres compatible database,
Oh yeah.
YugabyteDB, which means that we will see what we do with that, but at least Grafana can connect to it. I didn't enable SSH, so let's just disable it. The compatibility version is, and maybe I need a user. Yeah.
Yeah, what you're doing? Like you're using the root password for Prometheus and Grafana. You're just not using SSL. You're showing so many anti patterns today, my friend.
That's allowed.
Just folks, don't follow. Don't do this. It's okay to do this for the development. Don't do this abroad.
Yeah. No, in a lab, it's always okay. This SSL, of course, makes always sense to secure that, but okay.
Okay, the
I've
database
saved
connection.
it, so I have my two sources. The default is Prometheus, and this is the one we will use to get metrics. Let's first explore and quick start with a query. So here I can choose to type the PromQL query, but I'm really not good at that. I prefer SQL. But here we have auto-completion. So let's look at the RocksDB numbers that I was interested with. RocksDB number DB
Yeah, that's good.
and the seek. So we have two RocksDB per tablet, the IntenseDB and the RocksDB. We have metrics for all of them. I will take this one, which is the main one. And where is that? Yeah.
Oh, looks
We have
nice.
already something with some colors. Let's try to make sense out of it. We have the timeline because Prometheus is reading those metrics every 5 seconds and store it. Grafana can see the whole history. And a lot of information, but I want to group that with the sum per table name, because this is what makes sense for me as a user. So I see the table names. I have my PG bench tables there.
Excellent.
And I have some system tables, transaction catalog metrics. If I don't want to see the system one, let's just filter on table type and check only the PGSQL table type. This is the internal name for the Postgres compatible table, the YSQL ones that we have in YugabyteDB. And then I see all my user tables. Something else, yeah, cumulative statistics. You don't want a graph that is always increasing. What you want is to see the activity at each time. So for that, we have an operator. On the range, I just take the weight. So the difference between the two. And this is more like what I wanted. Of course, at the beginning, we had a peak of, I don't know exactly what, but we have some information. And
All right.
the PromQL query is this one. Actually, I've never coded PromQL myself. Either I use this UI, Or sometimes I just put the SQL query in ChatGPT and ask, can you translate me that to PromQL? And that works very well. Because the concepts are the same. I do sum, I do aggregation, I just filter. So the concepts are the same. Yeah.
And after that, after hearing this from you, many of us still keep blaming application developers for using ORMs because, like if you use ORM, you just don't write SQL directly, right? And this is the same standpoint. Some people just don't want to learn how the internal stuff, and unless you need to master it. That's a good point.
This is just in the explore. Let's put that in the dashboard.
Mm-hmm.
In a new dashboard, I have it. And I have only one metric here, that is the seek, and I want more of them. And just to show that we can do a lot of nice things in Grafana, I will add a variable in the
let's grab something else that is not available on YugabyteDB UI, the default one. So what folks might be interested in exploring. What do you, for instance, usually look at when you need to explain?
First, I would like to have a drop-down list where I can select. I don't want to show the 200 or I don't know if even more metrics, but I want to let the user choose a few ones. So here I have, I have a few metrics, and I can select them with a regex. If I just RocksDB, if I just put that, then I will have a list of many ones. I don't know why I don't see anything there.
You have query.
It's a query, a Prometheus query on metrics. Yeah, no, that's metrics. And I don't know what I did before, but I was interested in RocksDB, number DB. So all those with that in the name. No.
What if you put this, like if you do this, if you put RocksDB and then put star?
No, but I have them. I have them there.
Okay.
So I applied that. So that's just a variable in my dashboard where I can select one of them. But for the moment, it's not linked to this graph. But I can do it. Instead of mentioning the name of the metric, I use a variable that I called query 0, just because I forgot to change the name here. It's called query 0. Why not? We will use that. And then, sorry. I don't know. What did I do? Query 0. Yeah, it should be.
This is
first,
when
I will test it in the
becomes
title.
complicated, right? When you need to.
It's more that here I have the screen a bit smaller than what I'm used to. Query 0. If not, I will rename it, but that should be. Yeah, so that's the name. DB next is selected. DB seek is selected. So I should be able to put it there, the same. Let me copy paste. Okay, now I just had to select it. Run. Okay, so here I see the seek, and I can choose another one. For example, the next in RocksDB, and if I run that, I have them. I will add something, a repeat option there to have multiple graphs. So I repeat those on the metrics, and I will change something in my variable just to set it as a multi-value 1. Okay. So that I can select multiple ones there. For example, I select those 3, and then I have the dashboard for all those 3 ones.
Okay. I like it.
And because I had a big number at the beginning, I just select a shorter time range there, and I can see the number of 6. So finding the key in the LSM tree that is behind pgbench accounts, the one that is behind pgbench branches. So I see we have seen that it was about 150 transactions per second, and I can see similar numbers there going to seek into those. I
Okay.
don't have pref because we do only forwarding index scan if we look at the execution plan. And the next are the number of rows that are read each time, so every second, and here are the numbers. So here I have some metrics that I choose, and I even can build a dashboard to give to the users. So there are things that are not in the standard UI, but I can build another UI that is more dedicated, maybe a dashboard for developers. They will be interested by those metrics, a dashboard for infrastructure monitoring, where they may be interested by the follower, like, for example. So you can really build dashboards.
And this is as a as just a thought, because why don't we support all those hundreds of metrics on their standard YugabyteDB UI, right? That you get when you start a cluster. Because
It's
sometimes it
just
doesn't make sense, right? You want to just show something that is like extremely important that we think is useful for every type of deployment. But once, folks, you need to have something that is unique to your deployment, then we don't want to build another Grafana. We just don't want to reinvent Grafana. You just
yeah.
can use Grafana. You can use other observability solution. Instead, what we supported is all those metrics are consumable from a Prometheus endpoint. And it's all open source. Like basically, we will be throwing all those metrics through the Prometheus endpoint, and then you just use Grafana or any other tool and look and build the dashboards that your team needs.
In open source, the only thing that you have to do yourself is a bit of automation. If you add a new node, for example, you have to add the new endpoints to the Prometheus one. Just small automation.
Yeah.
Because I
And
also
question, yeah,
created,
yeah,
yeah,
like
sorry, yeah.
probably, yeah, we have like 12 minutes left, so my advice, let's not go deep into the internals. So for what we can do instead, we have a few questions. The first one is from Pete, and actually I kind of scratched my head. I also wanted to ask the same to you. In a YugabyteDB cluster with multi-nodes, does Prometheus and Grafana have to automatically scrape all nodes, or is the data pre-combined somewhere by YugabyteDB? So, like, let's say, what happens when you scale to a 3-node cluster? What
Yeah,
needs
so
to be changed?
that's exactly what I was just saying before. My Prometheus configuration here is a static file in the Prometheus container where I defined the node. If I add new node, I have to add more there. So you need a bit of automation to do that when you add new nodes. Yeah.
So for every node, you need to scrape actually you need to
Yeah.
define that in configuration, and then Grafana will be scraping. And then on your dashboards, you actually need to group data, right? Similarly, you can group data from several nodes, I guess.
Those are the little things that we add on the managed service. Maybe one day we will add something like that in YugabyteDB if we see the need for it. Just showing that because I've created where is the add? I cannot find it. Dashboard variables.
What are you looking for?
I was looking for add button somewhere. Yeah, because the screen was too small. Just to show that because we have a source that is the Postgres source that can read from my Yugabyte database directly.
Okay.
We don't show those metrics from SQL, but I can read from my tables there. For example, here it's about SQL, so I know SQL enough to put a real
Let's see.
query there. Let me just copy paste a few of them. So for example, here I have a query that queries PG class and the table size that returns this. So I can put that here, but I can also build a dashboard on that. And in
then you can
Grafana,
execute it, and then you can execute it every, let's say, 5 seconds or 1 minute, right? Depending on what you need to update your dashboard.
Yeah, by default, the dashboard refresh is there. You define auto.
I see here. Okay.
But you can also choose the right visualization there. Just sorry. The
Table
screen is
size.
too
Good,
small.
okay.
I think it's somewhere there. Where is that? Let me put the screen a bit smaller to find it. Yeah, this was the table, but it's gone. Yeah, there are different ways to display information depending on the information. Here, because I have names and values, I can probably use something like a pie chart. PG table size, and you have to define a few things. Yeah, let me choose one that may be easier to show. Yeah, that's the total size. But basically, you can choose the unit, for example, because this big number is not very interesting, but I can use a short, or even because it's a size, I can put data, displays that in bytes. Okay, so yeah, many things can be done. And because we have 5 minutes, if there is no question, I can show you something.
We do have question. Not, it's kind of not a, it's not a question, but this is a clarification from Keval. If you folks remember in the beginning when we were discussing the Grafana and existing YugabyteDB UI, Keval acknowledged that important metrics like follower lag is not available in metrics section of the YugabyteDB UI. So such critical metrics can integrate with Grafana. And then here is here we can find more details. In Keval's case, YugabyteD upgrade failed 2-3 times as follower lag in one of the database node is more than 15 minutes. So when we upgrade YugabyteDB during the time, if follower lag is higher than 15 minutes, then upgrade will fail. And that's not it. More details. There are multiple reasons for follower lag. As for one, the node I kept master service down for more than 24 hours. And from that particular point, follower lag was behind the peer. There was no impact on the database day-to-day operation, but upgrade got failed. There was no alert for follower lag. So that is why I kept checking follower lag whenever I do the database upgrade. So Frank, any comments on this?
No, good feedback. Yeah, that's right. That if the master is not available, application still continues, but of course upgrades need to access the metadata of the cluster. Yeah, those are things to monitor. You can also use Grafana to have some alerts. There is some alerting rules that you can define. Another thing that is really nice with Grafana, you can add some annotations. So for example, you can look at the graphs of what happened the past day and add some annotations like when you upgraded or when you observed something, a peak of activity in the business. And then you can correlate the metrics that you are seeing from the infrastructure with events. Can also be just, I don't know, the marketing has did a campaign sending a lot of emails to customers, then you can expect more customers to connect. And it's always good to have that when you look at a peak of activity in the database and know if this peak is because of something happening in the business or something happening in the infrastructure. So there are many things that you can do in Grafana for alerting and adding more information. Let me just add something to the...
Yeah, let me also clarify those who are not familiar with the concept of the master, because in YugabyteDB architecture we also have a master process that basically keeps the metadata that needs to be shared with the cluster, and also whenever you change your schema, the requests need to go through the master. But the actual data, right, and the actual execution of your deletes, inserts, and other DML statements happens on the YugabyteDB server nodes. So like that's a quick intro to the architecture internals for those who are not familiar with the notion of the master and T server in YugabyteDB.
Let me
Also,
add something that is
question.
very, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just sorry for interrupting you once again. Another question from Kewal, because it might just correlate with what you're going to show.
Yeah.
Yes, it shows aggregated value on Yugabyte metrics section. So Frank, let us know if there is any way to present memory details.
There is, but maybe we will look at that because I don't know by all the. I mean, we have a lot of metrics. I don't know exactly which one are the best to measure. There are also metrics to gather from the nodes themselves. For example, in Yugabyte Manage, we have the metrics from Yugabyte, but we have also the metrics from Node Exporter on the memory. I can mention that what I would like to see first as a metric about memory, not details, but memory in general, is the PSI, the pressure store information that is available in Linux. But unfortunately, it's usually not enabled by default, and we cannot see them. For the breakdown of the memory components, maybe we can do a session on that, because I have also to look at the right metrics that makes sense when you look at it. Memory is used for cache. Memory is used for cache in Yugabyte and in the file system. Memory is used for the first level of the LSM trees. So there are many, yeah. And of course for Postgres sessions, yeah. So we can do a session next time for about memory in general, yeah.
Okay. And in the meantime, while my suggestion is just you can move this conversation offline, meaning that join the Slack, probably already on our community Slack, and you can tag Frank and me there, and we can carry on this conversation offline.
Yeah, and we can check with colleagues, because memory is something that in any database, there is some memory that is allocated where we know exactly how much we allocate, but there is memory that just happened because of the workload, and yeah, that's a good thing. Yeah.
Okay, so you have 1 minute left.
Yeah.
You have let's do this sprint, like blitz. You have 1
Let's
2
do
minutes
that.
left.
Anyway, it's experimental. I was just testing something. There is auto explain that can be set, and that was part of the many parameters that I've set when starting Yugabyte. Auto explain is a Postgres extension that is available with Postgres and with Yugabyte, and I will try to use a dashboard on it. So by default, auto explain logs the execution plan of all queries, all or a sample of queries in the Postgres logs, so in a file. And just to test it, I've added a new scrape endpoint to my Prometheus to try to export some metrics from those logs. So first I restart Prometheus there, and then I connect directly to the Yugabyte node, and I will just get, so for the moment it's in GitHub. I was testing that. It's just a very quick Python script that reads the logs, reads lines that I'm interested in with a regular expression, and gets number of rows and number of executions. But basically I will run it. So I need to know where is the log file. I need the Prometheus client, because I use a library that just formats everything perfect for Prometheus. Just to show that it's not difficult to build your own exporter to export new metrics. And I start it. And basically,
and just to clarify, while we see these beautiful numbers on the screen, what Frank is showing, Frank shows you how to expand a list of the metrics that is reported by that Prometheus endpoint. Because if it happens that among those 200 plus metrics that are reported through Prometheus endpoint by YugabyteDB, you don't find whatever you need, you can expand it. And this is the example how Franck wants to use auto-explain extension of Postgres to look into the execution plans and just to show those execution plans on the Grafana dashboard.
Yeah, so basically what auto-explain does is adding to the log file the execution plan of queries that are executed. What my Python script is doing is just getting the information from the execution plan that I'm interested in. So the node that says how many rows are updated or scanned by an index. It displays it on the screen for my debug mode, but it also shows them as Prometheus metrics. And then I have added that in the Prometheus scraping, and then it is directly available there. If I add a new visualization, I should, so not from Postgres, from Prometheus, I should see my metrics that I called explain node total rows. And here we should see.
Fingers crossed.
No, that's because I have fixed somewhere. That's because I have fixed the time just before. Let's look at the last 15 minutes only there, or the last 5 minutes, because I just started it. And so here I have some metrics. I will do the same, an aggregation to some. I'm interested in the node, so knowing if it's an index scan or something. And here it is, and the same, yeah. So I see those numbers. So the number of rows read by index scan from each table. I can sum also, I have the table information.
Yeah, you go deep.
So let's just put that, and I will put that with.
It's like a surgery, right? If you just really want to do a surgery with your database deployment, that's what can happen. Oh.
And this is a visualization that is quite nice also in Grafana, the heat map. So that shows a color depending on the value. Probably it's better to put it in the other way, to have in white the small value. There is something called the reverse here. Yeah. Okay, so the whites are the small values. So here I'm just saying that I'm doing more and more index scan on pgbench account primary key, and maybe I will just add a range function to get only the rate here. So this is a quick way to see that here I had some activity on the primary key of pgbench account, and this comes from something that Postgres doesn't get as a metric, Yugabyte doesn't get as a metric directly, but there is a way to log that in a file, and there is an easy way also to read that file and export those metrics to Prometheus. So you can add many things. You can also add some business metrics to it. Makes sense to look at the workload of the database with some metrics from the business. For example, you have an order entry e-commerce application. It's always good to see the number of transactions per second, but also the number of orders from customers. So yeah, you can mix all that in some dashboards.
Okay, that's good. That's good. So like, thanks for this demo. And folks, right now you know how to scrape various additional metrics using Prometheus and Grafana. And if those default metrics that we expose through the Prometheus endpoint are not enough, you can expand. That's what Franck showed you. As for the questions, just one kind of last 2 minutes, folks. If you have any questions, please ask. Also, as a quick hint, I think that we still might have some issues with the connection between our streaming tool and LinkedIn. If you have asked any question on LinkedIn, but we did not answer it, sorry, we just didn't see it. We will take a look at those questions once we go offline, and then probably next time we will figure out how to rebuild and to make this connection between the streaming tool and LinkedIn stable.
Maybe we need to monitor the follower lag in LinkedIn.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, we need to do something. But yeah, I have a question from you. I have a personal question to you, Frank, and I will understand if you don't answer it. For that Python script that gets data from the auto explain, have you used GitHub Copilot or ChatGPT to put it together?
Yes, I did. I used the one in Bing, so that's Copilot. Yeah.
Thanks for your honest answer. But yeah,
but
I also use
if
Copilot
I
a lot.
remember well, I also used a template from Stack Overflow. Stack Overflow is still useful.
Yep. At least Stack Overflow is useful in the sense that all those AI tools, they need to learn from someone, and Stack Overflow is exceptional and knowledge base.
Yeah.
Okay. So then, having said that, thanks a lot to you, my friend, for making this deep dive today. I learned a ton, and I do believe that those who watched us live today also are helpful, are grateful. And those who are going to watch us on demand later, if you have any questions left, just go to our Slack channel. This is where we are hanging out, and you can ask any follow-up questions that are related to your specific use case. All right.
Keval, do not hesitate to contact us also on Slack or whatever about monitoring follower lags, memory, all that. Those are topics that we need to cover also. Yeah.
All right. Thanks a lot for everyone who joined us, and see you next time. Bye now.
Bye.